The nuclear industry wants to transport, then process, bury, and abandon all of Canada's high-level nuclear fuel waste in northwestern Ontario. This is the second of 3 short explainer videos to support public discussion mid-2025. In July 2025, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization announced it was inviting input on an initial project description. In fact, it's a summary of a draft of their eventual initial project description. This is the short, glossy version. Comments on the actual initial project description will be invited by the Impact Assessment Agency. Before the NWMO can construct and operate their project, the NWMO must receive approvals both under the Federal Impact Assessment Act and through licensing by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. As this graphic from the Impact Assessment Agency depicts, impact assessments are a multi-phase process. In the case of the NWMO's project and other nuclear projects, they are referred to as integrated assessments because decisions are being made under both the Impact Assessment Act and the Nuclear Safety Control Act. There are 5 stages or phases, and there's a role for the public and Indigenous people in the first 3, the planning phase, the impact statement phase, and the impact assessment phase, which will also include a public hearing. We'll look in most detail at the first stage, which is the planning stage. The first public comment period is on the initial project description. There will be a 21 to 30-day comment period. At least in theory, this is the point where the foundations for the assessment process are built. In commenting on the initial project description, we are advocating for a full assessment and public hearing, arguing that alternatives and alternative means of carrying out the project must be explored and described, and identifying gaps in the project description and identifying the topic and information areas that should have been included. After the comment period on the initial project description, the agency releases their summary of the issues and the NWMO must respond. There are no comment opportunities. The agency has the discretion to require NWMO to produce a more detailed project description at this stage or to simply move to the next step. The next step and comment opportunity is the draft tailored impact statement guidelines, which we'll refer to as the guidelines. The guidelines are important because they set out what information the NWMO must provide in their impact statement and supporting documents, and the impact assessment will be carried out based on that information. During the same comment period, the public will be invited to comment on the public participation plan, and Indigenous peoples and organizations will be invited to comment on the Indigenous engagement and partnership plan. A coordination plan and permitting plan will also be posted. The second phase of the impact assessment process is referred to as the impact statement phase, and during this period, the NWMO is producing, then finalizing their suite of impact assessment documents. While the NWMO is preparing their documents, constructing the case they will use to try to persuade the hearing panel to approve their project, terms of reference for the joint review panel are developed, and the joint review panel is appointed, and hearing guidelines are prepared. These will include important details such as whether the public can submit comments, questions in writing in advance, and how we will be allowed to participate in the hearing, including how we will be allowed or not to question the NWMO directly on their information, and how much time the public and Indigenous people will be allowed to speak. Before the hearing begins, there will be deadlines for written and other submissions, and a schedule will be released. A hearing will be held with presentations to the panel, first from the NWMO and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission staff, and then from Indigenous people and the public. We expect there will be some opportunity for questions. In advance, participants can apply for a modest amount of participant funding to hire experts and partially cover direct expenses for participating in the hearing. But the funds are very limited, and fundraising and pooling of resources might be required to bring outside experts to the hearing to support public participants. After receiving the review panel's report, the minister must make a decision. Will there be adverse effects within the federal jurisdiction that are likely to be significant, taking into account the implementation of mitigation measures? If the minister determines that effects are likely to be significant, Then they must determine whether the significant effects are justified in the public interest. The minister has the option of referring the decision to Cabinet. A decision statement is issued informing the proponent of the decision, reasons for the decision, and any conditions being imposed to mitigate, avoid, or reduce adverse effects from the project. The decision must be posted on the registry. Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation has announced that they will be reviewing the project using their own sovereign process they are calling the Regulatory Assessment and Approvals Process. We have no additional information about the WLON RAP. We do know that other First Nations have developed and carried out very thorough and effective assessment processes. We do not know if WLON is getting advice from these other Indigenous nations and organizations, or how much they are relying on the NWMO and federal government actors, who we do know are in ongoing communication with WLON and are spending time in the Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation community. Two other important details. The first is that the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission will be the ultimate decision maker through their licensing process. The first license to prepare the site will coincide with the impact assessment process, but a detailed review of the larger and longer-term safety issues will not be addressed until later licensing stages, and that is a serious limitation. The other important detail is the public registry. The Canadian Impact Assessment Agency is required to post information relevant to impact assessments on a public registry. It's a valuable resource and includes all notices and documents for the assessment. Typically, the registry is established with the initial project description being filed with the Impact Assessment Agency. Quite unusually, in the case of Nwmo'S nuclear waste burial scheme, the public registry was opened in July 2024 for the purpose of posting a protocol among Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, and Nuclear Waste Management Organization. The development and signing of a protocol between the proponent, the nuclear regulator, and the agency is also highly unusual. The protocol sets out how the CNSC and IAC will assist the NWMO by providing feedback and advice, including on draft documents. It also sets out that the technical disagreements between the NWMO and IAC or CNSC staff will be addressed under an issue resolution mechanism. This protocol absolutely gives the NWMO the inside track, with issues being resolved privately before they are ever made public. Another important detail is that the NWMO has a special project service arrangement with the CNSC. So when you see the CNSC staff out at an event in Dryden or Ignace, know that the NWMO is paying the CNSC for their time to the tune of $275 per hour. Under this service agreement, the NWMO receives feedback and advice from the CNSC and meets quarterly for progress meetings at the director level and annually for planning meetings. The NWMO's timeline is likely to shift, but currently they are projecting that they will submit their actual initial project description in late 2025 or in 2026. Filing that initial project description will trigger the 2 comment periods. Following that, the NWMO will prepare and submit their impact assessment documents with lots of closed-door exchanges with the Impact Assessment Agency and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Important to note that while developing the impact statement is a formal phase of the impact assessment process, the NWMO has been developing their impact statement over many years. For example, in 2021, they put out a call for consultants providing assessment services to go on their list of preferred vendors. In 2024, they posted 17 specific requests for proposals from consultants to produce reports directly tied to the impact assessment process. The NWMO is projecting that they will file their impact statement in 2028 and they will receive an approval in 2030. Several licensing stages will follow that. The first of 3 short explainer videos provide background to the NWMO project, and it's available on our YouTube channel. Part 3 discusses the NWMO's soft launch of their initial project description. Thank you for watching. Let's keep in touch.